wonderful session.
డాన్స్ లోపల వద్దన్నా కూడాను వెనుక స్వామికి ఆశ్చర్యకరమైనటువంటి యొక్క దృశ్యాన్ని నిరూపించాలని పైకి ఎక్కాడు 12 అడుగుల పైకి. అక్కడి నుంచి జారి పడ్డాడు. పడేటప్పటికి మెడ చాలా వాచిపోయింది. అప్పుడు నాయన నీవు కొన్ని దినాలు రెస్ట్ తీసుకో, నీ స్థానానికి ఇంకొకరిని అందించమని చెప్పాను. అబ్బాయి చెప్పాడు, స్వామి నా జీవితం మీ నిమిత్తమై ఏర్పడినటువంటిది, మీకు అర్పితం కాకుండా ఇంకొకరికి ఈ స్థానంలో నేను ఎట్లా చోటిస్తాను, కట్టుబట్టి సాధిస్తానని చెప్పని ప్రమాణం చేశాడు. అట్టి దీక్షకై నాకెంతయో మనసు ఆనందపడింది. నేను చేయి పెట్టి మెడపైన తిద్ది ఇంకా సరిపోతుంది పోమన్నాను. నా యొక్క సంకల్పం కూడా అభివృద్ధి అవుతూ వస్తుంది. కట్టగడపటికి ఆ స్థానంలో ఆ అబ్బాయి దీనికి తగినటువంటి ప్రదర్శన చేసి చాలా ఆనందపరిచాడు.
Just like this Darjeeling boy, if our hearts beat only for Sai, if we do everything only to bring a smile on his face, then our lives will become a series of celebrations of his miraculous presence. In fact, the universe will rearrange itself to ensure that his love protects us like the islands protect the earth.
స్వామి అంటే పిల్లలందరికీ ప్రాణం.
Boys take Bhagavan as their very life.
పిల్లలకి ఏ విధంగా డిసప్పాయింట్ కాకూడదు.
Boys should not be disappointed.
పిల్లలకి ఏ విధమైన అనానుకూలములు సంభవించకూడదు.
Students should never face any inconvenience.
పిల్లలందరూ క్షేమంగా.
Boys should be safe and secure.
పిల్లలే నా ప్రాపర్టీ అని అనేక పర్యాయం చెప్పారు.
Bhagavan said students are his property.
పిల్లలు క్షేమంగా ఉంటేనే నాకు క్షేమం.
The boys are secure, Bhagavan.
పిల్లలు ఆనందంగా ఉంటేనే నాకు ఆనందము. అంత తల్లి కంటే 1000 తల్లుల ప్రేమ కంటే ఎక్కువగా చూస్తుంటాడు స్వామి.
Swami is taking care of them with 1000 mothers of love. God is with you, in you, above you, below you, around you, and will take care of you.
మీ బెస్ట్ ఫ్రెండ్
Who is your best friend? God is your best friend.
Sairam, everyone. A warm and loving welcome to all the visitors and members. Let's begin our service today by asking Swami, who is present here, to awaken within us purity, unity, and divinity. Sairam. Happy Valentine's Day. It's coming up tomorrow to our divine love, to our beloved Bhagwan Baba, and also to, each one of you who's present. Swami is definitely present in each one of us, and happy Valentine's Day to each one of you as well. So, before we get ahead with today's program, Shivratri bhajans and celebrations will be taking place. It's on Monday, Feb 28th, at Satya Pat's home. This is again, in addition to the bhajans that would take place at Center on Sunday on February 27th. Sunday program, goes on as usual. In addition, on Feb 28th, we have special celebration coming up at Satya Pat's home. So today, we are having a wonderful opportunity. Of course, by His grace, a few years ago, we were wondering how do we express, more of our love to Swami. Then Bhagwan's grace, of course, the thought was to have express, how the bonding is, what kind of bonding, how He created, and what we all go through, with the divine love that we receive on a day-to-day basis. So with that, we started Prema Bandham title, the series. So every year, around this time, Valentine's Day time, we have a talk that primarily that covers the bonding and his messages and the love and the compassion, the companionship, all these things surrounding in the talk. So today we are so fortunate and blessed to have one of his most ardent devotees in lifetime, none other than Christian Kaul. I lovingly call him as a Christian uncle. Rashmi, if you can, help me going over a short bio, even though it may sound long, but to compare to what he has established, what he has done in his lifetime, is really a short intro that we are going to provide you all.
So Christian Kaul has been active in the Sai organization in the UK since its inception in 1975. He was a member of the very first National Council in the UK and vice chairman of the council twice subsequently. He was the president of the Pinner Sai Center, the very first center in the UK, for over 6 years. Over the years, he has been involved in organizing seminars and conducting workshops, study circles, training programs, service activities, etc., within the organization in the UK. Through his grace, Christian Kaul was inspired to hold the pen for Swami in writing the book titled Self, A Study in a Circle. It is a study circle manual which was released in 1995. The second book, Sai Mere, Sai Hridaya Nivasi, written on his command, was released on Guru Purnima in Prashanti Nilayam and is now on sale in the SSS bookshop there. The draft of the third book titled Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya is almost complete and ready for publication. For a number of years, Christian Kaul has also given lectures to MA students, giving evening classes on Sanatana Dharma at the World Sikh University in London. By profession, Christian Kaul has been a chartered civil structural engineer. He retired as technical director. He was a senior consultant and a specialist with Hyder Consulting, a multidisciplinary firm of consulting engineers in the UK. His field of specialty has been the design and construction of subways and metro structures. He has been invited as an advisor in his field by a number of authorities and has delivered lectures to technical institutions and professional bodies around the world. He has authored a 700-page technical book in his field. It combines within it two specialties, and on that account continues to be the only book of its kind in the world. It was published by Taylor Francis of London and released in the UK, USA, and Canada simultaneously in April 2010. We are so excited to hear you speak.
Saram Krishna uncle.
My heartfelt salutations to our beloved Lord, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, and dear children, Jai Sai Ram. Can you hear me at the back? Okay. For offering me this opportunity, I'm obviously grateful to Swami, but I'm also grateful to Ravi and the Atlanta Sai Center for giving me this opportunity to share some of my experiences with you. On my very first pilgrimage to Prashanti Nilayam, to have darshan of Swami for the first time, in anticipation of coming face to face with Swami, I glanced deep into the corridors of my life and wondered in trepidation, how on earth can I stand face to face with my Creator when I look through the corridors of my life? But then there he was, standing amongst us, so full of love, knowing every feeling, and in fact every failing within each one of us, and yet showering his love and compassion on one and all, encouraging every puny little effort on our part to put some sort of order in our lives. Behaving in a loving way that all the apprehensions melted away in the warmth of his love and compassion. Swami has been known to have deliberately posed questions to devotees like, who are you? What's your name? Where do you come from? These might sound ordinary run-of-the-mill questions, but they were deep and probing questions deliberately put to the devotees in the expectation that they would go deeper and try to find out the reason why Swami is asking these questions, and also in the expectation that they would dig deep within and find the appropriate answers to these questions. The purpose of such questions was not only to make the devotees contemplate on the falsity, triviality, and travesty of the run-of-the-mill answers that when Swami is asking, who are you? Oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm Krishan Kaur. But importantly, they were also prompted so that devotees could dig deep and try to ask themselves, why is Swami asking these questions? And even try and find out the answers to these questions that he expected us to find out. When we contemplate on who I am, we realize that there are 3 stages in this progression. The first stage obviously is that I'm so-and-so, identified by my name. But then when the penny drops, that this name was not my inherent name, it was given to me by someone else. Listen to this. The name was given to me by someone else, meaning thereby that this is not my inherent real name. It was a given name by someone else, whose own name was given to him by someone else. Then the penny drops that I cannot identify myself by the given name, which doesn't belong to me, which is not inherent, which is not intrinsic to me. Then the realization dawns that I cannot identify myself really and truly by my given name. Then one moves on to the second stage, which is, I don't know who I am. First stage was that I'm so-and-so. Realizing that that was a given name, we move on to the second stage, when we realize, in reality, I don't know who I am. I cannot be Krishan Kaur. It was a name given to me. So who am I? The second stage. When we recover from these 2 stages, then we begin to realize that I am someone who is sometimes awake, sometimes dreaming, this person with a given name is operating under false pretenses, because he claims to be the person with the given name, which has been given to him by someone else. In other words, it claims to be someone that inherently he is not. We have a name for such a person. Can anybody tell me what that name is? Someone who operates under false pretenses, we call him an imposter. So, in the light of this, the process of name giving is nothing but one imposter anointing another. Do you agree? One imposter anointing another. Because person giving a name to someone else, his own name has been given to him by someone else. That's not an inherent name of his body. That's a given name by someone else. So, viewed in this context, every single individual who masquerades under the given name as an individual worldwide belongs to a league of impostors. And if truth be told, 100% of the world's citizenry belongs to this league of impostors. How can human beings worth their name, let alone Sai devotees, allow themselves to become willing stooges of this imposition? That's the question one has to ask. Intense awareness of Swami, coupled with love, devotion, humility, and prayerfulness, invites his benediction, unbounded compassion, and infinite love. And if it pleases Swami, he then reveals glimpses of his divinity. Such events turn into catharses. They represent spatial milestones and important signposts. They infuse and reinforce courage, confidence, strength, and inspiration in our efforts along our spiritual path and progress. My association, my bond of love with Swami has been an ongoing saga on my part of progression through various stages of humbling, stumbling, getting my ego blasted, understanding, learning, and trying to reach with it. Prema Bandham is the bond of love between Swami and his devotees. How do we as his devotees manifest this bond? We inevitably do so through Nam Smarana and Seva activities, through outpouring of our heartfelt love through devotional singing and selfless service. हमको तुमसे प्यार कितना साई तुम ही जानते, दिलों की धड़कन तुम हो साई, तुम हमारे प्राण हो. And we conclude this by O kumaku oke bandhamu adiye prema bandhamu. This bond between us is the bond of love. With the commingling of our tearful emotion and devotion, we remind ourselves and renew our bond of love with Sai every year. Nevertheless, the use of words like we and you in this statement, we love you, while proclaiming our love for Swami, also implies a separation between us. When we say we and you, it also implies a separation, that we are different from you, you are different from us, although we love you. In other words, implicit in the renewal of our bond is, at the same time, also the confirmation of our separation from Swami. That is the grand irony. Is this continued separation from Sai our goal? I don't think so. The question is whether we're content to go through this ritual year in and year out, or progressively try to neutralize the separation, the distance between us and Swami, and get closer to him. Whether we as individuals are getting carried away and lost in the ritual and forgetting the essential purpose, or indeed getting closer to him, we alone can be the best judge of that. It's also important to ask ourselves whether Swami pines for us to pour out our love for him through song and service. Does he seek our adoration? Is he reliant on our service? I don't think so. My understanding is that the devotional singing and service activities provide merely convenient avenues for our benefit by which to cleanse our thoughts and emotions so that we may comprehend the underlying reality of life and purpose in it, our purpose in it. This understanding, it is hoped, will finally enable us to lessen and sever links with the body consciousness, and importantly, make us aware of Atma consciousness and of our oneness with Swami, the object of our devotion. However, if we lose sight of that goal, I believe we would be letting Swami down very badly. In moments of deep and calm reflection, the realization will not be lost on us that the teacher of truth, the Nataraja, the cosmic dance master, the supreme cosmic dance master, our Lord Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba, came verily to teach us and take us through every step of the dance. He had indeed expressed that sentiment in one of his divine discourses, and how agonizing it was for him to see us pummeling through every step of the dance. It is through Swami's will and grace that I stand in front of this august assembly, and that against the above backdrop, I feel emboldened to share some of my cherished experience with you this afternoon. These events, which have reoriented the course of my life and influenced the lives of those connected with me, are offered at the lotus feet of Sai with all my love, reverence, and gratitude. Now, going into some of I want to set this backdrop against which I want to share some of my experience with you. First time was in 1975 that I had the occasion to spend 21 glorious days at the lotus feet of our Lord. I won't go through that. I had gone with the sole idea of, I didn't want anything. I wanted to fall at the lotus feet of the Lord. So I didn't go there with any desires, with any wants, simply to fall at the lotus feet. And it was like the return of the prodigal son. Swami, unasked, filled me brimful with his grace, love, out of his compassion. If I go on recounting the wonderful things that happened during those 21 days, we'll be here for hours and hours. So I'll skip all of that. I'll pick up one example when he taught me that Swami was the master of time. That year, Golden Jubilee year, devotees from outside of India were treated with kid gloves in Prashanti Nilayam. They were allowed to sit in the temple corridor. So one such day, I found myself seated directly opposite the door leading into the interview room, the long corridor in Prashanti Nilayam temple. Right-hand side, Swami's interview room, and the far end, I was seated there, facing that door. But those days in the morning, Swami used to take in devotees for interview for 2 or 3 minutes before the bhajans. So as Swami stepped out of the interview room, coming that way in my direction, I kept my head like this. I didn't want him to pick me up for an interview because I realized that in the morning it's only for 2 or 3 minutes, but it was leisurely in the afternoons. So I was trying to avoid being picked up. So I sat like this for quite a few minutes, thinking that by now Swami must have passed me. I opened my eyes, he was standing there with a bunch full of vibhuti packets in his hand. So I lifted my hem like this to collect these because there are quite a few. He said, no, with your hands, which is what I then did. And then he said, get up in for the interview. So of course, beggars can't be choosers. Went in. And there are a number of others who were also invited into the interview room. I was the last one to enter the room. Swami was seated in his throne, and there was no space. I couldn't even move. I was standing at the door. So Swami beckoned to me, close the door behind you, and come near him. And then made me sit next to his chair while he was sitting. And I was saying to myself, Swami, just 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll be out. Why did you call me? This was going on in my mind. Would you believe it? Swami spoke to us for well over 30 minutes. I was so full of joy and happiness. I said, Swami, you have made my day. How come normally you only invite for 2 or 3 minutes before the bhajans, before the start of the bhajan? So after the end of the interview, I was the last one to move out of the interview room. As I stepped out, I heard the 3 ohms, not the conclusion of the bhajan, but the very start of the bhajan. Now, how could this be? I was thinking of going somewhere in seclusion and going over all the love that he had poured during these 30 minutes. But how could this be? We were there only for 3 minutes. How come it felt like 30 minutes? Then I was reminded of the instance of Mahabharata war. When on the battlefield, 2 armies were arrayed against each other, and there Lord Krishna has a conversation with Arjuna, which is worth 701 quatrains, which, if you recite those quatrains, takes you anything over 2 hours, just recitation. But this was a conversation. There would be thinking time as well. So it would be easily more than 2 hours. How come nobody on the battlefield, no warrior on either side, raised the question, what's going on for 2 hours? We're here to fight a battle. What is going on? Then the penny dropped that Lord Krishna had taken Arjuna and 2 or 3 others who could see all this into a different dimension of time, for whom he had stretched the time. Then I realized that's what was happening here. Otherwise, how could he have talked for 30 minutes and 3 minutes? Not possible. In other words, he taught me that he is the master of time. He is the master of time. Fast forward 2 years later in 1977. Now, after 75, when I got back to UK, as in the intro it was mentioned that I was the UK, part of the UK Council, this, that, and the other. Slowly but gradually, ego had taken over. Unbeknown to me at the time, but it certainly had taken over. So in 77, when proceeded to Prashanti Nilayam, I was expecting, last time, Swami, unasked, showered his grace and love on me. This time, I've been working in the UK Council, I've done a lot of work, so he'll call me, definitely call me for an interview. The very first day, it so happened that I was in the first row. Swami comes out directly towards me. I said, yes, everything is happening to plan. And as he reached within 5 feet of me, he looks at the person to my left and at the person to my right, ignoring me as if I was a big zero, not as if I had turned into a big zero. And he was making sure that this lesson, this important lesson, was not lost on me. He has a knack of doing that when the ego takes over. And then what happened was, sitting where I was, when Swami came out for darshan, as he came close to me, I had a big shove with an elbow in my back. I looked around, and there was this young Indian boy, young man. He had a big grin on his face as if he had achieved something very nice. It was so hurtful, but I couldn't say anything. In the afternoon darshan, when I was there, I looked around to make sure that this guy was not behind me for another shower. Swami came, passed me by. I had another big shower. Again, I looked back. He is there, again with a big grin. I said, my God, why is he doing this? It's not as if Swami is standing by me, talking to me, and he wants to catch a little bit of that. Swami is ignoring me. Why is he poking my back with his elbow? Day in and day out, morning, afternoon, the same treatment. I call it poke and grin treatment. It was not only a poke, shove, but a big grin, big smile on his face, as if he had achieved something fantastic. Then after a few days, what happened was, there was no poke and grin. I said, oh, thank God, this young man must have gone home. This problem is at least behind me, or should I say not behind me now. Now that day what happened was, Swami had to go into the Puttapati village. So all of us stood by, there used to be this Ganesha circle and two dwarf walls. So everybody used to clamber towards that, ladies on the ladies' side, gents on the gents' side, and so did I. I was standing by this dwarf wall watching Swami come out. And again, I had this almighty shove, this time even with a bigger force. I looked back, the same person again. I said, my God, where does he come from? Why is he after me? So much so I begin to think that there's a conspiracy going on in Prashanti Nilayam against Krishna Kaul. Would you believe it? So anyway, Swami looks at me and then looks at this guy. So I said, now he's going to be taken to task. I was not happy that Swami was at least looking at me after a couple of weeks. I was happy thinking that he would take this guy to task. You see, still deep in my own world. So Swami gestures to him with a stern eye. So I said, no, Swami is going to take him to task. He climbs over the dwarf wall, goes. Swami lifts his robe and gives him Pad Namaskar. And looks at me as if to tell me, put this in your pipe and smoke. This was heating and beating, blasting my ego, that trip 77. So when in the flight back to up north Delhi, when I slumped in the seat in the flight, I began to recount what was happening. Said to myself, I spent a lot of money in travel, time, resource, what for? To get Swami's grace. But I got caught in the trivialities, in the peripherals of trivialities. But even then, I realized that by ignoring me, Swami was telling me, I know where you are seated. He knew where I was seated. In other words, the contact was there, but I was not understanding it. This is his love and compassion. If we are observant of this, we will realize that he is trying to teach me something. Otherwise, the contact is there. Because I had been telling Shivani, well, Swami says that you can only come to Prashanti Nilayam when I will it. Well, I'm here, so he must have willed it. But why doesn't he call me for an interview? Why doesn't he talk to me? This was the answer. That your ego has taken over. The contact is still there. You're not able to see it. Fast forward to 1981. I was seconded to Baghdad government to work on Baghdad metro. So there were some other Sai devotees in Baghdad also who had come from India. One day, one devotee who was keen to know how to conduct bhajans, he was very excited. He rang me up to say, Krishan, Swami came into my dream and he showed me how to conduct bhajan. I was, of course, very happy for him. He said, but later on he said something. Your father is not well. Tell Krishan Kaul to pray. Now, I began to wonder, this seems to be an indirect message. If his father was not well, Swami would have asked him to pray. Why tell Krishan Kaul to pray? So I began to wonder whether my father, whether he had messed up the message, whether my father was all right. 2 days later, I get a letter from my sister from Jammu to say that our father was not well, and she wanted my permission to take him to AIIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi, for further tests. But this letter had reached me after 11 or 13 days, because there used to be censorship, because Iraq and Iran were at war. Every letter used to be censored. So then I realized that by now she must have taken him to our father to AIIMS. So my cousin in AIIMS, Dr. Safaya, he was the director of AIIMS then. So I tried to contact him, but couldn't get through. However hard I tried, I just simply could not get through. Then I contacted one of our Sai devotee friends in London, asked him to contact Dr. Safaya. So he was able to make contact, and the message back to me was, Mrs. Safaya, Pyariji Safaya had said to him that if Krishan wants to see his father alive, he better come. So I realized that something was very serious. So I contacted my executive director, apprised him of the situation and told him to organize tickets for me and my family at the very earliest, because time was of the essence. He told me, he said, look, you know well enough that you need an exit permit to go out of Iraq, and that takes anything up to 10 days. Certainly no less than 7 days. I said, I don't have that luxury. I don't have the luxury of time. So I went to Akama myself. Akama is the office who issued these exit permits. So I went there on Thursday. Thursday and Friday, half of Thursday and Friday is a weekend in Baghdad. Used to be a weekend in Baghdad. So as I approached Akama, there used to be normally a queue mile long outside the office. But this day, there was nobody outside. And I said, oh my God, are they doing something else today, and is my journey wasted? So I gingerly approached this office, entered, and all the people manning different cubicles were standing and chatting. And they, all of them looked towards me with a big smile on their face, beckoned me to come, as if they were waiting for me. So I went to them, asked me, what can we do for you? I gave them the letter, which was in Arabic, to say that I needed exit permit to go to India. Within 2 minutes, I got the exit permit. Would you believe it? No 7 days, no 10 days. 2 minutes, I got the exit permit. Now the second one hurdle crossed. The second problem was get the tickets. This was around Christmas time, just before Christmas. And all the flights were fully booked to India as well as to UK because of the Christmas. So our own travel agent, he said to me, sir, flights are booked till middle of January, till the new year. There are no flights. So I said, I can't rest here. I went to see this travel agent. Told him I need these 3 tickets urgently, 2.5 tickets urgently. Prashant was just 6, 7 years old that time. He said, sorry, you looked at the computer, sorry, there's no seat. Not even to London, you could go via London, no seats available. So I was just sitting there, not thinking just what to do next. The phone rings. He picks up the phone and talks in Arabic. At the end of it, he says to me, how many tickets did you say you wanted? I said 2.5 tickets. He said, somebody who's going to Bombay has cancelled his 3 seats. And here are your 3 seats. I had to go to Delhi. I said, never mind, I'll go to Bombay, and from Bombay take a connecting flight to Delhi. Now this is what I did. Now, The day we had to proceed towards the airport, I quickly grabbed hold of some cassettes, audio cassettes, bhajans and so on, without realizing that you could not carry audio cassettes in Baghdad and out of Baghdad, because the government there used to think that you might be passing on some secrets. So it was strictly a no-go. So while I was standing in the security queue, 2 or 3 persons ahead of me, one Iraqi guy, he was asked to open his belongings, and they found these audio cassettes, and he was taken for interrogation into an inner room. My legs began to shake. It'll be my turn as well, because I've got audio cassettes. And before I can convince them that this has nothing to do with their secrets, I'll lose my flight. The second person after that, the same thing. Then, while this guy, security guy, was talking to this guy, he beckons to me, yalla, 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 go, go, go. No check, go, pass. So this hurdle also saw me took care. So anyway, to cut a long story short, took the connecting flight to Delhi. I reached Ames Hospital, and I met my sister, who also happened to be a doctor, in the corridor. And she said to me, our father has withdrawn, he doesn't talk, because he has got stomach cancer. So when he saw me, he began to open up. He began to cheer up and open up. And then Dr. Safai was there, and I was talking to him, and I said to him, I shall take him to Bombay, because there's this institute there for cancer. He said, no, I would not advise that. He saw reluctance in my face to accede to his request. Then he said to me, I'll take you to a specialist who is looking after your father. He said, secondaries are involved. And if you take him to Bombay, you'll be putting him through torture. So he took me to that specialist, and they convinced me that it would not be in the best interest of my father to be removed to Bombay for further treatment, because he was at a stage which was beyond treatment. Anyway, we were there for a week or so. Then we decided that in Delhi, it's very difficult for my brothers and sisters, all of them, to be there, because some were in Jammu, some in Delhi, scattered all over the place. It was logistically very difficult for us. So all of us decided that we would shift to Jammu. It's a smaller place. My sister was a doctor there, and we would be all together, brothers and sisters would be looking after my father, and we would be all together. And this is what we did. So, as we approached the airport, I told my sister to contact her head of the department for a special room. She rang up the guy, and he said, no, they're all booked. There's no special room available. So we didn't know what to do. Anyway, when we arrived at the hospital, we went to see her head of the department. And he said, I have one suggestion to make. There's a library wing, and there's a room with an attached under room, small kitchenette, bathroom, independent. You have a look at it. If you like it, we'll get it cleaned for you. So we went there, and it turned out to be even better than any special room. This was self-contained, and it was any day much better than any other room. So that's where we ended up. And just outside the window, there was a temple on the road, so morning, evenings, there were bhajans and aarti going on. So this was the ideal place. So we were there for about a week. Then this person, the specialist there, says to us that, look, I would make one suggestion to you. Whatever treatment we are dispensing your father could be dispensed to him at home as well. And it might be best that if he is in homely surroundings. So we said, that's fine, but our father feels somehow reassured being in the hospital. He said, leave that to me, I'll convince him. So he talked to my father and said to him, look, you're welcome to stay for as long as it's necessary, but we have got to conduct an operation on you, and for that, you need to gain in strength. We feel that you might possibly do so if you're back in a family environment. So this convinced my father, and he agreed. Now the next hurdle was that our own house was in Kashmir, Srinagar, not in Jammu. Where do we stay? So I started looking around for some accommodation, a self-contained flat or a house or something. And I had lost track of time. In my nightgown, I used to go out trying to find a place. One day, I found a spot. And they said to me, yes, it was an independent flat. Yes, you bring. Then he said to me instantly, why do you want this flat? I said, our father is not feeling well, so we want to look after him. Then he said, all right, you bring your wife and let her look at this flat also. I said, she'll be happy. He said, no, no, no. Anyway, went home, rang him up. Yes, she's happy. They said, sorry, we have given it to someone else. The minute I had mentioned that my father was not well, he quit his word. Anyway, again, to cut a long story short, finally, I found a flat. An upstairs flat, downstairs the landlady used to live. Her shrine room was open and there was Swami's picture there. And that's why we ended up. Anyway, so the day we shifted our father there, he had to be taken up in a stretcher. When the landlady saw my father in a stretcher, she told Shivni that I didn't realize his father was that ill. So I suspected maybe if she had known that, she would not have given us this flat. So I told Shivni to tell her, please, don't worry, I'll go and look out for another place. But I don't want to be a burden myself or my father to be a burden on anyone. Then the good lady replied, she said, no, no, sorry, don't misunderstand me. I want you to stay here. What had happened was there was a Kashmiri family living in that flat. They had been living there for over 10 years. Out of the blue, they decided to move out for no apparent reason. And she says that I realized that God was vacating this place for you, your father. No, you stay here for as long as you have to. Anyway, one day what happened was a relation of ours came from Delhi. And I was sitting next to my father. He came in there and he said to me, what has happened to you, this Baghdad thing? So my father was very alert and he sensed that something untoward had happened. What had happened was that I had received a notice from my office in Baghdad to say that you better return and resume your job within 5 days, or else consider your job in Baghdad as well as with your parent company in London terminated. 5 days. So of course everybody got worried, our family and so on. And they said to me, you send a, wire telling them, yes, you'll come after a week. Then I said, no. My father never lied. I'm not going to start now. If they want to take my job, let them take it. I'm not going to budge away from my father, because I realized that Swami was also putting me through a test at that time. Whether I would give preference to my job, my livelihood, or my father. And I said, I'm not moving from here. One job or no job, I'm not moving from here. So I had created a wall around me against any provocation for me to go back to Baghdad. So I didn't even respond to that letter. I said, yes, if the job is gone, let it go. I don't have to respond to them. 3 months later, what happened one night was, my father couldn't breathe during the night time. So we all family members who were there, we gave Ganga Jal in turn. But somehow he survived that night. In the morning, my mother and I, we were sitting on the bed next to my father. My mother asked him, you seem to be lost in thought. What are you thinking about? He said, no, I'm in bliss. All my thoughts are turned towards Puttapati Baba. All my thoughts are turned towards Puttapati Baba. I'm in bliss. A person suffering from cancer says he's in bliss. All my thoughts are turned towards Puttapati Baba. What I had done was, I had stuck photographs of Swami everywhere, in every place that my father's eyes wandered, because I wanted to make sure that his total attention was concentrated on Swami and nothing else. On Shivratri day, which is the biggest day in the Kashmiri Hindu calendar, in the morning I used to recite Bhagavad Gita, all the 18 chapters. I was halfway through the 14th chapter. My mother was there, and my father bid us goodbye. And I said to mother, my father has bid us goodbye. Now, then it took me another 2-3 weeks to go through the formalities, to go through the legalities and so on and so forth. After I was free of all of that, which was well over 3 months after I was given the 5 days notice, I sent intimation to my office in Baghdad to say that I'm coming over to Baghdad to collect my belongings before I move back to London. Please tell me whether I owe you anything or you owe me, and please decide that. If the Baghdad metro had gone through, which it did not, it would have been there for 9 to 11 years, and I would have been there for 9 to 11 years. So the kitchen things and so on were shifted there. So Pat comes the reply from my office in London to say, we're very sorry to hear that you have lost your father, but we're delighted that you are coming back to your job. Now, if Swami had willed it, he could have easily given me another job, even a better one than this. But he did not. Because if I had lost my job, everyone would have said that I lost my job on account of my father's illness. And he was a noble soul. Swami did not give the satisfaction to anyone even to say that. The funny thing is, when I reached back in London, after winding up in Baghdad, the first day I went back to the office, Mrs. Thomas, she was the secretary of my partner, she used to do my typing as well, because those days we didn't have these laptops and so on. So I went to say good morning to her. I said, good morning, Mrs. Thomas. She didn't reply, but she looked at me with a big smile on her face. Mr. Cole, there's someone up there who is looking after you. Imagine this coming from an English lady. So I said to her, yes, Mrs. Thomas, I know. What made you say so? She said, the entire correspondence with Baghdad, with you, was passing through my hands. I was typing all that. So I was in the know of everything that was happening. We didn't know what to do with you. We didn't want to lose you. But we didn't know what to do. You didn't even reply. Baghdad, they were chasing us after you. We told him, we'll send you a replacement. They were saying, no, we want only Mr. Cole. For different reasons, unbeknown to them, but only known to Swami, client in Baghdad wanted me, and my own office people in London wanted me. How was this possible? And what had happened was that meanwhile, a week previously, another colleague of mine, Brian Thomas, who was senior to me, he had left the firm after many, many years. And my boss says to me, your seat is vacant once again. So at different stages, Swami puts us through the tests, teaches us, but showers his loving grace as well. But at the end of the day, he wants us to find out the truth about life. What's it all about? Is it all about singing bhajan and saying, Swami, we love you, we love you? When do we become one with Swami? When will that penny drop? In my humble way, I think that is the purpose of all these various activities that we are engaged in. Ravi, how am I doing for time? 13 minutes. Thank you. (1993). Pass back forward to 1993. We were in Whitefield that time. Prashant was in Puttaparthi, and Shivni and I were in Whitefield. But no, Shivni I think was with Prashant. They came over from Puttaparthi, and when Swami came out for darshan, he saw Prashant. And he said, "What are you doing here? You go back to Puttaparthi hospital." Because he was doing some holiday training there in blood bank. Go back, go back. So that very evening he went back. But Shivni stayed put, so two of us were there. 3 days running, Swami called us for interview. I had carried the draft of my first book, Self-Study in a Circle, with me. And I literally wanted to place it at the lotus feet of Swami. So we are amongst a group of other devotees, also invited for interview. And then Swami started discussing the last chapter of this book, which dealt with numbers. So he discusses this thing and occasionally glances at me how I would be reacting. And I was with folded hands saying mentally, "Swami, you were the author of the book. So nothing is hidden from you. It's no surprise you know what's contained in the book. Because you were the author, I was only holding the pen for you." Then he called us in the inner interview room. There was also one other doctor, Dr. Arana Nath from London. She was on her own. So she also came with us into this inner interview room. And we were either side of Swami's chair. I placed this manuscript literally on the lotus feet of Swami, which is what I wanted to do. He allowed it to stay there for quite a few minutes, then picked it up and started turning page after page after page. And I was saying to myself, "Swami, how gracious and kind you are. You know every single word that's written in it. Yet for my satisfaction, you are turning page after page after page." Then, before we left the interview room, Swami says to Shivni, "Your husband, before arriving at work, he is thinking of how to improve this book. And when he enters his office, the first thing he does is jots down the points." How can he catch up with Swami? Swami is infinity. Help him finish the book and bring. Help him finish the book and bring. So Shivni had the presence of mind to ask Swami, "Swami, why shall we get it published in London or in India?" Swami said, "Good printing in London, publish in London." So back we came to London, and I sought few quotes from various people, but they were outside my means. I could not afford them. There used to be a Sai devotee friend of ours in Wales, so I contacted him. I said, "Look, I'm in the process of getting this book published. Do you know any publishers?" He said, "Yes, I know someone here." So he invited us for the weekend. So we drove, Prashant and I, up to Wales, and we got a reasonable quote from him. Back we came to London. While I was driving back, the thought crossed my mind that Swami said, "Good printing in London, publish it in London." Did he mean literally in London or figuratively anywhere in the UK, Wales included? This thing started to turn over in my mind. What happened that weekend was another Sai devotee friend of ours, chartered accountant. He rang up to ask me whether I had found a publisher for my book. I said, "Yes, I've got a quote from Wales." He said, "What quote have you got?" I said, "I'm not going to tell you. Are you going to propose someone else?" He said, "Yes, I do accounts for one publisher, and I'm going to contact him. You tell me how much quote you have got." No, I said, "No, you get an independent quote. It's not fair on this guy otherwise." So he came back with a quote which was slightly higher. I said, "No, I've got a lower quote." He went back and came with a quote which was lower. So that's why we settled. This was the publisher who used to do printing for Prince Charles. So that's where this book got published. Now this was first interview. The second day, again in the interview room, I was standing with my hands folded like this. He looked at my ring. The ring was given to me, materialized by Swami in 1975, my first visit to Prashantinilayam. It was a silver ring with 3 faces on it. Swami's face, Swami's portrait, and then Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna. 3 portraits on it. So I said, 18-year-old ring, 18-year-old ring, give. Took the ring out, gave it to him. Now, before I proceed further, what had happened to this ring? This was given to me in 75, this was 93, 18 years. What had happened over these 18 years in UK was that all the Sai devotees who would shake my hand would rub on this ring as if some charge would come to them. And I would feel very annoyed, but I couldn't stop them, not knowing who would rub and who would not. So over the years, what had happened was that Swami's eyes had turned like dots. They had got so much rubbed, they were like dots. So I used to tell Shibni, nobody else, Swami's eyes are like dots, I can't see Swami's eyes. So in this interview, Swami says, Swami's eyes like dots, can't see Swami's eyes. 18-year-old, give, in a casual way. In a casual way, in a subtle way, telling me that I'm omnipresent. I'm present everywhere. Handed over the key, showed it to others. Then he says, this is silver, now gold. He blew it on 3 times and turned it into my present ring, which is gold with emerald in it. So I was so attached to Swami's face in that ring. I said to Swami, what am I going to do with this? Give me something with your face on it. No. Keep it. This is for your writing and for peace. This is for your writing and for peace. Green ring. Now, 2 days, Prashant was not with us. On the 3rd day, he also arrived from Puttaparthi. So 3rd interview, all 3 of us were together. In the interview room, after Swami talked with us, when we were about to leave, so we were standing up, all 3 of us, myself, Shibni and Prashant, and Swami hardly 2 feet away from us. Swami says to me casually, how is your health, sir? He used to add, sir. I said, Swami, your grace, all is well. Then he casually turns towards Shibni and he says, blood everywhere, a little operation, but nothing to worry about. Now I heard this. What Shibni heard Swami say was law of nature. I didn't hear that. This happens many times. 2 people enter Swami's room and he talks 2 different people, 2 different versions. One might say mine is correct, yours is not, but that's not the case. Both versions are correct because this is what Swami wants to convey to each one of those in different ways. Anyway, without panicking us, without alarming us, we came out of the room. So, back to London, this was in September, back to London, what had happened to me was that normally during my travel, long air flights, my ankles swell, but they stayed swollen for a few days and then they subside. But this time around, they stayed swollen. So when I reached back London, I went to see my GP and he said to me, oh, I'll give you a medicine which will either cure it or make worse. Just cracked a joke at me. So I said, but make sure you complete this treatment course. Don't leave it halfway through. Complete this course. So I was munching away these tablets that he gave me. And this was September, October time now. I was part of the UK Council and we had to decide why to celebrate Swami's birthday that year, 93. So Amy Levy, who was the chairman, I was vice chairman, we went to a place about 18 miles away from London, East London, to look up at a hall where we could possibly celebrate Swami's birthday. We spent about an hour or so there, came back, parked my car. Amy got into his own car and went back to his home, and I went upstairs into the gents' restroom, and I had an almighty hemorrhage. Passed blood everywhere. But through Swami's grace, I did not pass out. So, another Sai devotee friend of ours, Dr. Dharam Modgil, who is these days always at Prashanti, we called him because our own GP was on a holiday. He said, nothing doing, you've got to be taken to hospital right now. So we went to the hospital, Asia General Hospital. I was there for some time, cut a long story short. admitted, and this hemorrhage was continuing. The second day, which happened to be a Thursday, I said to the nurse, I said, look, I feel like passing motion. Can you put up a barrier here? Which is what she did. Then she stood next to me. I said, no, please you move out. She said, I can't leave you alone. They had connected various gadgets, pipes and so on, all over me. So under my protestation, poor girl left. And then again, I had a fall. I passed out. I hit my nose on that stand and fell. Then I don't know what happened. Again, I was told afterwards there was blood everywhere. Blood everywhere. Anyway, eventually, to cut a long story short, they took me into the theater. But before that, this doctor is asking me questions. I realized that they have given me sedation, and he's trying to see whether I have gone under or not. So I had a smile on my face that let me see who outlasts whom. Anyway, I was taken in. Then, I don't know anything. 2 days later, I opened my eyes in the ICU. And there was one gentleman, Sai Jyoti from South London, Ramalingam, he was there. He was rubbing vibhuti on me. He had a smile on his face. I had a smile on my face. And I closed my eyes again. Now, nobody knows how he could enter an ICU, let alone was allowed to rub, which would look like dust or dirt to someone else. Anyway, I was removed then to the general ward. Not a general, a particular ward. And there was one guy who was in pain. Elderly guy, he was in pain. He was shouting. He was not allowing anyone to sleep. And other patients were very annoyed with him. But I was feeling very sorry for him because I thought to myself, poor fellow cannot help himself. He's in pain. So what else can he do other than, yell in pain? And he was looking at me with some kindly eyes, as if he sensed something serious had also happened to me. Anyway, what happened? Second day, one surgeon passed by in his blue overalls. The minute he saw me, oh, am I glad to see you? I want to shake your hand, shake you by the hand. I said, why? What's so special about me? He said, we lost you 3 times. You had lost so much blood, we lost you 3 times. And normally that's it. When it happens for the 3rd time, the surgeon says to the nurse, he's gone, patch him up and remove him to the morgue. So something prompted me to try again for the 4th time, and you revived. That's why I'm glad to see you. Half an hour later, another lady again in green overalls, she said the same thing. I said, why? She said, I was the anesthetist who was treating you. And I was there for 13 days. And then I was allowed to go home. And this was in October. And I went back to work for the first time a week before Christmas time. So a few months I was recovering. So Swami had forewarned me. Now, some of my friends told me that you should sue this doctor who had given you wrong medication. I had been given wrong medication because I had a history of ulcers, stomach ulcers, and I should not have been given that medication. The doctor realized it, he accepted it, that he made a mistake. So everybody was telling me that you should sue him for millions. I said, no. Swami had forewarned me, and the poor chap became an instrument. He didn't do it deliberately. So Swami is saying, blood everywhere, a little operation, but nothing to worry about. So is love and compassion. He is letting us go through our karma, but His grace is there. His grace is there. There are many, many instances. In fact, my association with Swami is full of these instances where he is teaching me. Besides showering his grace, he is teaching me something. In one interview, Swami says he knew I have fascination for numbers. Which is greater, 1 or 9? The obvious answer normally would be number 9. And I said, obviously, he's not looking for the obvious answer. He would not ask the question. But if I said 1, he would not stop there. He would ask me why. So the best thing is to be truthful. So I said, Swami, 9 because it represents truth. He said, yes. But how could 9 be if there was no 1? 1 came into being only because there is 1. 1 added 9 times becomes 9. So if 1 was not there, 9 would not be there. So 1 the mother that gave birth to 9 the son, who is the bigger? Who is the greater? 1 Swami. 1 Swami. Now this simple statement of his. See, whole of Vedanta is filled in it, in this statement, 1 is greater than 9. So what he was telling me is that 1 contains within it all the numbers, however big or however small, are contained in 1 only. In other words, all of us are contained within God only. 1 is the connecting link in all the numbers. God is the connecting link amongst all of us. This is nothing but Vedanta. So in saying 1 is bigger than 9, if I did not delve deeper into it, I would have lost the message that he was conveying to me. There are many instances. Some time? More time? Okay. Okay. So as I said, I could be here hours and hours and hours and still not exhaust Swami's love, compassion and grace. But time is against me. So thank you so much for being patient listeners. Thank you and Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, that was so inspiring and motivating, and it is really connecting and reconnecting with Swami. Especially the I story is really mind-boggling, isn't it? Of course, for each person, the experience can be different. With one, it could be I. For another one, it could be heart. For another one, something else. But all these experiences are really very touching experiences and very, very special experiences. And Kishan uncle, thank you so much for honoring our request. I know it was a short session. In future, definitely, we should have many more sessions so that we can learn, Swami's experiences and teachings through you. Nevertheless, of course, out of your devotion to him, Swami has created that heart-to-heart connection and that bonding with you. And he not only showered that heart-to-heart connection, he also showered a heart specialist at your family. Is none other than his own son, dear brother Prashant is out here. Prashant, thanks for coming too. He has been very active. I know of late we are not doing the medical screening actively, but very soon we'll be, I know Srikanth has been putting in effort. Very soon we will be resuming the medical screening and so on. Just to cut the long story short, both Prashant and his wife Mala, they've been actively helping the center. Especially Mala is our SSC teacher, and entire family, if you all look at it, is completely, with Swami and taking Swami's work all around. We are so grateful and thankful, dear uncle. for coming forward and sharing your experiences with us. If I can request Brother Ilya, please go ahead and give our token of love to Christian Uncle. Christian Uncle, if I can request you up for one more minute. Let's dive into the bhajan. Prema Sarupa Namo Namo. Mangala Rupa Namo Namo. Karma Sarupa Namo Namo. Sai Sarupa Namo Namo. Sai Sarupa Namo Namo. Namo 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 Namo. Namo 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 Namo. Sundara Rupa Namo Namo. Ati Sundara Rupa Namo Namo. Sai Sarupa Namo Namo. Sakta Sai Sarupa Namo Namo. जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक प्रति महेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे शिवधरा श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतीका आश्रित कल्पलतीका आपद्भावा ओम जय जगदीश हरे माता पिता गुरुदैवं मरियं तन्मीवे स्वामी मरियं तन्मीवे नाद ब्रह्म जयनाथ नाद ब्रह्म जयनाथ नागेन्द्रासना ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप जय श्री साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल हारति अंगतु मंगल हारति अंगतु मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की परमं पवित्रं विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमानन्दात्ममुख्यं प्रदातं बाबा विभूतिं पवित्रं